On the coldest night of the year, when the wind howled like a wounded creature and the world seemed wrapped in a cruel sheet of white, Officer Daniel Hayes pressed his boots deeper into the fresh snow and fought the rising fear in his chest. His radio crackled with static, but the message was clear enough to freeze any man's heart. 4 missing children, last seen near the edge of Pine Ridge Forest, temperatures dangerously low. Even before dispatch finished speaking, he was already running, guided only by instinct, training, and the silent shadow beside him. Max, his loyal police dog, whose breath puffed out in small clouds as he trotted ahead. They had minutes, maybe an hour before the cold claimed tiny lives, lives too small, too innocent, too fragile for a night like this. If you believe kindness, bravery, and second chances still matter in this world, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. The storm had rolled in faster than anyone expected, swallowing the sky and turning the quiet mountain town into a frozen maze of white. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The search teams had already swept the main roads, the playground, and the abandoned cabins near the highway. But Daniel knew, something in his gut told him, that 4 scared sisters wouldn't run toward the lights. Children hide when they are afraid, and fear doesn't follow logic. Fear runs to the woods, to shadows, to places adults never think to look. That was why he and Max had broken away from the main search group and headed deeper into Pine Ridge, where trees bent under the weight of ice and every sound vanished into the storm. Daniel's thoughts kept circling back to the call from the girl's aunt, the one who discovered them missing. Her voice had trembled with a guilt that pierced through the line, explaining that she only turned her back for a moment, and when she returned, the 4 sisters, ages 3 to 9, were gone. They had just moved to town after losing their parents in an accident months earlier. The girls weren't used to the new house, the new guardian, or the quiet rural landscape. In their confusion and sadness, they must have wandered outside, thinking perhaps their parents were coming back, or that they could find a way home. A home that no longer existed. Max suddenly stopped, head raised, ears stiff. Daniel felt the shift in the air before he saw it. Max's training kicked in, his body lowering, his nose digging into the snow as he pulled forward. There was a scent, a trace, a thread of hope. Daniel tightened his grip on the leash as Max led him off the main trail, deeper between the trees, where the shadows seemed to swallow the world. Branches snapped under his boots, and the cold bit into his skin like shards of glass. But he didn't stop, not when he imagined the smallest girl, barely 3, unable to keep her tiny hands warm, not when he pictured 4 sisters huddled together, waiting for someone, anyone, to find them. After what felt like a lifetime, Max lowered his head again and barked once, sharp, urgent, desperate. Daniel pushed forward, brushing aside snow, covered branches until he reached a hollow beneath a fallen pine tree. That's when he saw them, 4 little bodies curled into one another, shivering so violently that their teeth chattered even in unconsciousness. Their lips were blue, their faces pale. Snow had gathered on their hair, shoulders, and tiny coats that were never meant for a night like this. The oldest girl had wrapped her arms around her sisters in what must have been her final attempt to shield them from the cold. They were barely breathing. For a moment Daniel froze, not from the cold, but from the crushing realization of how close they were to losing everything. He wiped the snow from the oldest girl's forehead. Her eyelashes fluttered, but her eyes didn't open. Time was slipping through their fingers. Max pressed against them, offering his body heat, nudging the smallest child with his nose as if urging her to stay awake. Daniel radioed for help, his voice cracking with urgency, but he knew an ambulance wouldn't arrive in time, not out here, not in this storm. The girls needed warmth, fast. He removed his own coat, wrapped it around the smallest two, then lifted the youngest into his arms. Her skin felt frighteningly cold, almost waxy. He held her to his chest, rubbing her back to keep her awake, whispering words she couldn't hear but somehow needed. The other two he carried with the help of a makeshift sling from his gear, their tiny limbs dangling limply as he trudged through the snow. The oldest sister, fragile but still clinging to consciousness, was too weak to walk. Max nudged her repeatedly until she finally grasped a handful of his fur. The dog moved slowly beside her, supporting her with the gentleness of a guardian who knew a life depended on him. Step by trembling step, she followed. The walk back felt endless. Every gust of wind was a threat, every slipping footstep a danger. Daniel's muscles burned, his vision blurred, and the snow blinded him, but he did not stop, not once, because heroes are not defined by strength. They are defined by refusal to give up. By the time they reached the clearing near the road, the ambulance lights cut through the storm like a promise. Medics rushed forward, lifting the girls onto warm stretchers, wrapping them in heat blankets, checking their pulses. The youngest two were dangerously close to hypothermia. The oldest girl's legs couldn't stop shaking, and the third sister clung to Max's fur even as the medics tried to examine her. Daniel watched from a distance, chest heaving, his breath fogging the air. He didn't even realize how cold he was until the warmth of the ambulance brushed against his face, but he didn't care. All he cared about was whether 4 little heartbeats would keep beating. Hours later at the hospital, the doctors finally delivered the news. All 4 sisters would survive. They were weak but stable. They made it because help arrived just in time, because one officer trusted his instincts, because a dog followed a scent no one else could find, because hope, even in a blizzard, refused to die. Daniel visited the girls once they were awake. They didn't have the words to thank him, not fully, not yet, but the way they looked at him and